Welcome to the Ohio Writers Guild. So tonight, I know we're a day early. We normally come on Tuesdays, but I was just telling the gals that I am flying out in the morning for New York City. So I have scooted the meeting to this Monday tonight so that I could interview Kelly and visit with Sandy before I actually get on the plane to New York City. So yes, for those of you that are listening, don't be too jealous. If any gals that are listening, the guys probably aren't, but the gals, I get to see Hugh Jackman in person on Broadway in The Music Man. And I'm hoping while I'm there to maybe get some discount tickets to Chicago, because Chicago is also playing while we're there. So I may not, depends on the cost. Yeah, because some of the tickets, I don't know if you've looked at Broadway tickets lately, but wow, they are hugely expensive. So anyway, that's the scoop. And so tonight, this is Monday, a one-time Monday event that we are having the Ohio Writers Guild. And we embrace all writers. It doesn't matter whether you're writing fiction or nonfiction, doesn't matter whether it's children's books or self-help books, doesn't matter. I am recently a newly published author. And so when I first started to facilitate this group, I was like, oh my gosh, there's all these writers, and I was feeling a little intimidated by all the writers because I hadn't published yet. And so now I can say I'm published. So there you go. It's not a big deal except in our own minds. So for those of you that are listening to this podcast, you can get started writing so many different ways. If you start writing a blog, and I've got a whole blogging course and a mastermind if anyone's interested. And we help you. We help you kind of get published. We find a platform and get yourself out there. And so sometimes it's the baby steps that make a difference. And when I got published, I did ask myself, I thought, oh, am I ready to do this? And then I thought to myself, you know what? All the other folks that are going to jump on this bandwagon are going to be published. And I'm still going to be sitting here going, I'm going to get published someday. So I decided that when that train went by, I was going to get on, because I knew that I was going to be published if I just got on the train and did each of the little baby steps as we go along the way. And I come out the other end a published author, and you can too. So just remember that. And there's just lots of ways to get published. And so we have a totally different way this evening that we're going to talk about. So I'm excited about it. So anyway, that's a little bit about me. You can find me, and I'm going to put it in the chat to everyone. And then I'll put it under also the replay of this video. I'll also put it in the comments so that you can find me, but you can touch base with me at kathybinner.com and just scroll down to the Ohio Writers Guild, and you'll see the free replays of all of our interviews. You'll see that we have a course coming soon and we have a mastermind coming soon, but you'll also find at kathybinner.com all the other writing opportunities, the blog post, for example. So anyway, tap in and see where you might connect a little more, and let us help you get started writing. So speaking of helping getting writing to start getting your writing under wraps there and get published, I want Sandy to tell you what she has up her sleeve, and you've got to put these dates on your calendar. So over to you, Sandy.
Hi there, I'm Sandy Kachurik, and I am director of Into the Springs Writers Workshop in Yellow Springs, Ohio. And I've been a part of it since 2018 and took over as director in 2019, and I have kind of run with it, renamed it, polished it up a little bit, and moved it from a community center to a pretty swanky little boutique hotel in the middle of Yellow Springs. And Yellow Springs is a very, very unique little town, unusual in its location in Ohio in some cases, and interesting. It's considered the home of the flower child, and coming out of the 60s, and home of Antioch University and College. So it has kind of a hippie vibe that it likes to embrace even today. I love writers. I love working with writers. I've been involved in so many writing conventions, and now it's time to kind of steer my own ship. It's like hosting a lot of writers and then realizing, I got to publish. So I have been published. It's more nonfiction. I've got a couple biographies out there. but this coming, it's always now the first weekend in August, and it's this August 4th through the 6th in 2023. And I haven't announced this yet, but my two writers, one is Jason Sanford, his is basically science fiction fantasy writing, and he's been nominated a finalist for the Nebulas and Hugos, and those are all science fiction related awards. And he does Patreon very well, if you know what Patreon is. And short stories are also a part of what he knows well. But he's being coupled with Jane Friedman. And Jane Friedman is the publishing guru of everything. She was once editor-in-chief of a company called FNW Book Publishing. They did all the how-to books that Writer's Digest came out with. And she helped take them from, well, she was a part of their world until she knew digital was the way to go. Then she kind of broke off and did some work for other places in the digital world. And now she's independently. So if you want to know about writing trends, if you want to know how to improve your website, how to be, where should you go? Independent published or traditionally published? She can tell you. She knows what's out there. She's traveled the world in that. And I am fortunate that, one, she's a friend of mine, but two, that she's willing to do this. So I'm looking forward to it. And as you have a new thing come out, as it's now time to start this season, so I'm back to tooling around on the website and getting it ready to roll and open to the public. But we take it all, the same as what Kathy was saying. Aspiring writers to accomplished writers, all kinds of genres. And the challenge, but also what's been successful so far since I've run this, is we're all in the same space. So that means from Friday evening to Sunday morning, everything has to work for everybody there. And it helps create connections and community on top of everything else. So looking forward to it, getting psyched up as the days go by. Thanks, Kathy.
Well, Sandy, it sounds very exciting, and tell the listeners, because again, we're going to actually publish this as a podcast and it goes out through like 8 different channels. And so as folks are tapping in, tell us, what can they expect at your writer's workshop? I mean, what happens? They show up, they can actually stay right there at the boutique hotel. Am I right?
They can. Like I said,
Okay.
it's kind of small. So there's about 28 rooms, but 10 are set aside, blocked for my use and for guests and so forth. But there are a lot of B&Bs, and I have that on the website too when it gets updated and ready to go, probably at the latest, the end of next week. And
Okay.
they show up on a Friday evening, and we make introductions. I ask them to think about what kind of goals they have for the weekend. And from there, it also gives our presenters or guest authors an opportunity to know where to go from there. Because I asked the 2 authors, and last year I had 3, or this past August I had 3, to stay in the room. It's a lot to ask of them. They stay there through the whole time. They stay during the lunch times. They get to escape for dinner on Saturday if they wish to, but they're there for questions. There's a lot of times where you may not be the type to ask the question, or the question comes to you after you've walked away from the session. Well, they're there the whole weekend, and they will be sitting and listening to what the other author is presenting. And for example, with writing trends, Jane will talk about what's out there in the big world of agents and so forth. And Jason will then chime in saying, well, in the sci-fi fantasy world, or in the world of short stories, there are these magazines you can get published in. So they kind of work in sync, as well as being very unique to what they're doing. And there's something I had, so we run through it. And on Saturday, it's a longer day. For all those early birds, I don't know if you've ever seen folks, it's 4 a.m. and I'm writing before I go to work. And I think I'm an early bird, but I don't know about that. Well, from 7 to 8 a.m. just because we have some kind of writing activity. If you want to come, it's optional. But starting at 9, there we are at it. And we share lunch if you wish to stay right there in the banquet hall, and you sign up for what meal you'd like to have for lunch, and then the hotel delivers it to you at your seat, and you get to chat some more and chat some more. And then Saturday night, there's book signings, and after that, there's open mic night. So we get to listen to your story for a 5-minute selection from your story. And if you're rather shy about talking your story aloud, I have 2 actors who come in who are kind of working and hosting that evening, and they will be more than happy to read it for you. And they're very, very good. So it's kind of nice to listen to your work that way, kind of a live audio version of it. And then
I
on
love that.
Sunday, we wrap it up. So that's it. Thank you.
Well, mark your calendars. It's August 4th through the 6th of 2023. So mark your calendar. You're going to love Yellow Springs. The little town is just adorable. I'm rather spoiled because I'm not that horribly far away, maybe an hour, hour and a half away. And so I'm closer than most of you. But anyway, it's just a great weekend. So make sure that you put that on your calendar. And Sandy did mention, number one, that they talked about getting published in some magazines. That's a great way to get started, if you want to get published. And I've just recently started as a freelance writer contributor for a couple of magazines. And so I've now been published twice. So, I'm getting there.
Nice, nice.
So it, baby steps, it all comes, I want to welcome Mary. She is in the audience. Mary, thank you so much for joining us. If you have any questions, comments as we go, please type those in the chat. We will monitor those. I put the Connect information for me also in the chat, and then Sandy has put her workshop Connect information there in the chat as well. So tonight we're talking with Kelly Kearns, and this is such a great story. So Mark and I, we bought a condo in Sarasota. I'm normally in Canal Winchester, Ohio, which is right outside of Columbus, Ohio. And we bought a condo in the Sarasota area, and we go down for 10 days about every 6 weeks. And when we go down, we love walking the old part, the downtown Main Street part of Sarasota. It has cute little shops and restaurants. And in the evenings, there's live music out on the sidewalk. But one of our favorite things during the day is there is this great little coffee shop, and they also embrace art. And so we found this coffee shop. And so whenever I want to meet an author down there, or I want to meet up with somebody that lives in that area, I always meet them at the coffee shop. So anyway, so Mark and I go into the coffee shop, and we were not meeting anyone that day. We were just taking our walk. I try to do a 5K every day. For those of you that follow me on Facebook, I tell everybody that your health comes before your wealth. So make sure you work on your health. And so my motto is walk a 5K every day. And so we were doing our walk, and we were at the coffee shop, and I see this amazing book on the coffee table in the coffee shop. And I'm just kind of looking at it, and I look over. Oh, I pick it up is what I do. I pick it up, and there's a business card inside, and there's the picture on the card of the author. And I look over, and I see this gal sitting in the coffee shop, and I lean over to Mark, and I said, I think she's the author of this book. And Mark says, no. He said, what would be the likelihood of that? And I said, I think she is. And so I'm kind of looking, and she's kind of looking at me, and I'm kind of looking at her. And so I had told Mark, I said, well, if she starts to leave, I said, I'm going to ask her. And so I don't remember who asked whom, but I know as you walked by me, Kelly, you may have said something to me first. But I had my eye on you. And so the two of us, we kind of at the same time, made eye contact and had a conversation. And yes, she was the author, is the author of the book. And so I went right on my Amazon and put it in my cart. And so she told me at the time that she, had a couple of other things already published, but her background is art design, color, and photography. That's always been her passion. And so she raised 2 children in upstate New York, and she owned and operated a full-time studio in her home. and she specialized in photography with families and children and high school seniors. But after she moved to Sarasota, after her children were grown, she decided to specialize in just headshots and marketing photography. But then, of course, as we all know, when COVID came along, a lot of what we were doing kind of dried up and everything kind of came to a halt. But then she kind of made a little segue into acrylic painting, and she researched the idea of coloring books. And
Yeah.
so she loved them as a kid. So she designed a few very quickly, and she learned how to improve all of that over time. And then her third coloring book, called Classic Vintage Cars and Trucks, is very high quality and it's selling very well. There, she has it right there. Say something and your video will show up. Say, yes,
Oh,
you got it.
this one's actually selling really well on Amazon. I did this about a year ago and I just learned how to do it properly. So yes.
Okay, perfect. So anyway, it took her about 7 months to design and create her latest coloring book, which is the one I saw on the coffee table. And it is Sarasota, a coloring book for adults and children. And it includes the top 10 attractions in Sarasota. Well, we love Sarasota, so that's what attracted me. I thought, you know what? I want that on my coffee table in my condo. So when my friends and family come over, I have this coloring book on my coffee table that has all of, the attractions of Sarasota. And so she says it's truly a labor of love. And again, I agree with Kelly that our little city is very magical, and it's kind of a tourist guide as well as a fun activity, for kids, and very relaxing. I have a girlfriend that is a little hyper, and the way that she relaxes is she loves to sit down and color in a coloring book. She said it's very relaxing to her. So I thought, I know what I'm getting her for Christmas. So anyway, I want to learn more about how Kelly decided to do this, what made her decide to do this. And also, she's got all of these illustrations and they're hand drawn by various artists. And so how does she find those artists? Because we have some folks that are listening to the podcast down the road that want to do children's books. And that's one of the things that, they have to figure out how they're going to do their illustrations. So anyway, it shows all about Sarasota. It's all of its charm and beauty. And you can get it right now on Amazon. It's only $10. So check that out. But Kelly, tell us about your journey. Let's go back and talk about you as a photographer in upstate New York. Let's start there.
So yeah, when my daughter was born, I was just looking to have beautiful portraits done, and I decided, you know what, I can do this, and I wanted to, make a little money while raising my children. And so I created a studio in my home, and then my son was born, and I did it for 18 years, raising the kids, and it was basically full time. I worked a lot. I became a very popular photographer. But yeah, my life's passion is really my art, my photography, and now, coloring books.
So you were doing it when you were in upstate New York, you were doing photography. And of course that is a form of art. And so were you entering like art competitions, like art shows with your photography?
I won several competitions in photography. I was probably, I would say, one of the best photographers in my little town, but I worked hard at it. I worked at it for many, many years, and took classes at RIT, and then became self-taught. And, I must say, I've been doing it for 30 years. I'm a very good photographer. So, if you work at something long enough and hard enough, you're going to be good at it. But I retired from photography about a year ago, and just hung up the camera and decided I wanted to try something new.
So when you say you hung up the camera, really, you're not doing headshots or anything now?
No, I'm not. I really stopped working about a year ago. 30 years is a long time.
It is.
Yeah.
So I have a joke, and so you have to take this with my good intentions. I was a nail tech for 25 years, and of course, doing acrylic nails, it's definitely an art because you sculpt the nail and all of that. And so I was at an art show, and everybody went around the room and they said, oh, introduce yourself and tell us, what is your medium? And so they're like, oh, I'm, Susie, and mine is watercolors. And I said, I'm Kathy, and mine is acrylics. And of of course, everybody said, wait a minute, you paint acrylics? And I said, actually, I do, but it's acrylic nails.
Yeah, that's funny. That's funny. Yeah. Well, that's art, of course. It's art, writing is art, an art form, and we're all hopefully artistic in one way or another. But yeah, I wanted to hang up the camera because I know that if you close a door and if it's solid enough, something new will come to you, and so I was kind of just waiting for the something new. And then I'm an acrylic painter, and I go to a friend's studio almost every day. So I'm passionate about my painting. And that takes up a lot of my time. I love doing florals. So I'm doing acrylic florals. But the coloring books are fun. And also I'm a community advocate, I guess I could say. You saw me downtown. I love downtown. I live in Lido. I'm on the board of directors of the Sarasota Farmers Market. So I have a true love of Sarasota. And I thought, let's get a little book out, And so what's cool about this book is it's twofold. It's, the parents can, look over the shoulder of a young child and say, okay, so the kid can color while the parents are looking at the, what the actual contents are, whether it's, the Ringling Museum or, I don't know, Polo, Siesta Key, St. Armand's. So that's the neat thing. It's twofold. For $10, you get a tourist guide, an attraction guide, as well as a coloring book for kids and adults. It's a pretty good deal for the money.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And I loved everything about it. But what motivated you to decide that you even wanted to do coloring books? Was there a motivation factor there?
Honestly, no, it kind of just popped in my head. I just, I'm always like with this podcast, I love to learn and I love to hear, I listen to podcasts, I'm on social media. And so I'm always looking for the next fun thing for me to do. And somebody mentioned coloring books. I'm like, So I started researching it, and I researched the KDP and, the publishing and the Fiverr. And so there's a steps of how to do it. And so, I learned about it. It popped up on one of my learning tools, which was like what you do, like a podcast. And with the research, I learned how to do it. I did it poorly at first, very poorly. And it was terrible, but I got better. And
so what are you using actually for those that are listening that might want to do something similar? What is it what did you learn? Maybe I should ask the question, what did you learn not to do?
Not to do is don't rush it, and that the content is extremely important.
Okay.
So you want to do a coloring book on cars or something, you can't slap together a bunch of cars. You have to, like mine is called Classic Vintage Cars and Trucks, come up with a cool niche. Is that how you pronounce it? Niche. And do it properly and research the cars or in fact, research Sarasota, so the first few books I didn't really do any research and I just sort of slapped it together. But then I discovered that to do anything properly, it takes time, it takes effort, and with anything in life, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so what did you decide? What platform did you decide to actually, where do you house the coloring book as you're working on it? What platform is it on?
Right. It's only on Amazon. And it's published through KDP, which is Kindle Direct Publishing. So if somebody wanted to make a coloring book, it's like a 3-step process. You have to have your content, and you have to have at least 45 pages. And you may also want to do an introductory page. And the content itself is kind of complicated because it has to be really high quality. And so it actually can be quite expensive because every single page is a drawing.
Okay.
And in my case, I paid an artist to do every single drawing, which could be $30, $40, $50, $60, $100 per page, unless you draw it yourself.
And then you have 45 pages.
Right. So it's not quite as simple as it might seem on the outset. It's just a coloring book. Well, okay, but it's, it's mine is a high quality coloring book. And so you'll see some nice coloring books that are beautifully done, and they're drawn by artists, and it might take up to a year to get a really nice coloring book. So it's not what it seems. That's the point of what I'm trying to say, is that's what I learned that each individual page is a piece of art.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then the cover is a piece of art.
Yes.
So,
And
yeah.
that's what attracted me was the cover. When I saw the cover, that is exactly what attracted me to actually pick it up and to leaf through it. And then when I saw what it was, and then when I saw your card and I thought I recognized you, then I got really excited because I'm like, I think this is Kelly, and it was. So I love that.
So
Now,
anyway, it's a little more complicated than it seems. It's always, people just think, oh, it's just a coloring book and whatever. But when you get, I think it's like anything in life, when you start to peel back the layers, it's like, oh, this is a little more complicated than I thought. But it is still super fun. I enjoyed doing it. I loved it. I worked on it for 7 or 8 months and I loved it.
well, I love how it turned out. So again, for those that are listening, you can find the coloring book on Amazon. And Kelly, do you have an author's page? I think you do. I think I found you on an author's page on Amazon as well.
Yeah.
But again, the coloring book is, what is the title again? It is Sarasota.
A coloring book for adults and children, included top 10 attractions in Sarasota.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
Thank
So
you.
how did you make time? I know you say the kids are all grown now, but you're on all of these other projects. How did you make time to actually work on the coloring book? And how did you find the illustrators?
Yeah, I worked, again, it's shocking if you do something properly, how much time it takes, right?
Right. Yeah, I get it.
I was shocked when I did my first 2 or 3. I'm like, oh, this is how this works. You slap this together. And I haven't sold one of my first productions, not even one, but my other books are selling quite well, like actually very well. So where was I? What was the question? I'm sorry.
Well, the question is, number one, how did you find time to work on it? And then how did you find your illustrators?
Yeah. Okay. So for the time, I'm completely retired and I worked on this about 4 to 5 hours a day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Because when you work with the artists, a lot of them are overseas in India or whatever. And so the communication, I worked with Fiverr. So that's an important note. It's Fiverr. That's the platform where you get your artists. That's a big deal. And so there's quite a few artists to choose from, and you start to build a relationship with them and you start to talk to them and you find out what they charge per page and so forth. So, and the time, it's laborious, and yeah, you just work with the illustrators, and you have, first of all, for a page, say you wanted a page on the ringling, I had to come up with the concept and I might sketch it, sketch it out for them, and then they draw it,
Okay.
Then you have to keep revising the page.
Because again, if you're choosing someone that's not only not from Sarasota, but not from within the country, then they don't even know what the ringling is.
Right. So, and you have to take, like, I'm a photographer, so I went out and I took photos of a lot of it.
Okay.
Yeah, and I send photos, or if I didn't have a photo of it, I would find something online that sort of represented what I wanted drawn, or I might send him 3 illustrations and say, combine these.
Okay.
So it was tricky and it was difficult. Yeah.
I get it. Wow. Yeah. So there is a lot more that goes into creating this coloring book than, what we're thinking. So we have some listeners that are doing children's books, and of course they are interested in, how you found your illustrators. And so you're saying Fiverr is the platform where you can kind of go and check. Now, what if you get an artist that, even though you try to work with them and it doesn't click? Yeah. What happens?
You may end up having to pay them for the page, because if they did some illustrations for you, you still owe them some money, and you have to be respectful of their time. And so I would generally pay them and say thank you very much respectfully, and just move on. You don't have to give a ton of explanation. You just say thank you, and then you resubmit the page to another artist. And that happens a lot.
Okay. Okay.
So you might end up paying for a page 3 times
before you get the one that you really want to use, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay.
And again, I was respectful of their time and their artistry, but yeah, it could end up times 3.
Okay. Okay. So again, and that's time and money for you putting this together, because you want it to be what you want it to be, which
Yeah.
is my next question. Thank you for that. Sandy put into everyone that Fiverr, it's a source of artist platforms if interested in illustrating. My next question then would be, when you finally decided that, okay, I think I want to do a coloring book, how did you come up with like, you know, the classic cars and then the Sarasota? What was your thinking on how you decided what you wanted the coloring book to be about?
Well, I think it just comes from my passion. I'm passionate about Sarasota. Like I said, I'm on the board of the farmers market, so I'm very involved in the community. And whatever I love, it's going to come out. Like right now, I love painting flowers. I might do a coloring book on flowers. That's a great idea.
That is a great idea.
So take your passion and just push it forward. I am friends with a group of gentlemen who love, and even my dad loves cars and trucks from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. So, and I kept hearing about it. And so that's how that came about, was just some of my guy friends talking about it. But Sarasota was easy. You know, I'm on the board of the farmers market. I'm at the farmers market every Saturday talking to everybody from Sarasota. And they're always asking me, you know, where should I go? What should I do? And then I'm like the tourist guide. Like, why don't I just write a book? You know, so
I love it.
It just really comes from coloring books, or I think anything in life comes from, you know, your heart and your passion.
So I know you're just launching this one on Sarasota. When I met you, you had just launched, and
Yes.
but the one on cars you said is selling well. Can you tell from your reviews who is it that's buying the one for the cars? Can you tell who your audience is?
You know, for the cars, it's designed. It's a sophisticated coloring book, but honestly, I think my goal is like a 10-year-old boy.
Okay.
You know, again, where dad or grandpa can look over their shoulder and chuckle. And so it's twofold. It's designed for children, but it's, I guess, almost like the Disney movies. It's like, it's great for the kids, but the adults always have like a chuckle in the background, you know? So
Yeah.
that's what my coloring books will always be. I think, like, designed for children, but the adults can lean over their shoulder and go, oh, that's cute. That's cute. I like, you know, like that.
So as you're making your coloring books, do you have any sort of a message, an overarching theme or message that you're trying to portray in the pictures?
In the pictures? Well,
Yes, just the artwork in general. You know, do you want to take your buyers of the coloring book on any kind of a journey? Do you want them to end up somewhere different from where they started? Like you do in a book. When you write a book, you want to take them through the story.
Yeah. I'll tell you the journey. The journey is to bring the generations together. And an old-fashioned family time. It really is dad or mom leaning over the shoulder. So the journey is not specifically you know, a picture of you know, Siesta Key or something. It's mom leaning over saying to dad, you know, we need to go to Siesta Key because that reminded me. And so it's a generational thing to bring families together with old-fashioned coloring. That's what it's about, some family time. That's the journey.
And you can do it anywhere. Yeah,
you can bring it with you on the airplane, and you can, yeah. So I would say that's the journey, is the family and spending time together.
I think that is such an important message. I love that. What are your plans in the future? You have plans for, I know you had an aha moment there about the flowers. What are your plans?
Yeah, you know, I think I will eventually do a coloring book on flowers. Right now, I'm working a lot on my acrylic painting. I go to a studio every day for like 3 hours, and I started with 12 by 12 paintings, and now I'm working on 16 by 20. So I've just gone bigger. And
okay.
So I'd like to eventually maybe sell some of my artwork, but I'll continue to showcase my coloring books and maybe sell them locally, and yeah, continue my art.
So now Sarasota, we love it because of the arts. They have theaters everywhere and art studios everywhere, and I mean museums everywhere. I mean, it's just a fabulous place. And so do you have plans of maybe having an exhibit down the road? Yes.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I work in an art studio with a friend, and so I'll be displaying not only my acrylic painting, but also I'll have the coloring books on display, and and we have Fresh Friday. I don't know if you've heard of Fresh Friday in Sarasota.
I have not. I need to learn about that.
Yeah, and so that's like an open invitation for like artists open their studios on Fresh Friday, and then there's like free music and stuff downtown. So I'll eventually showcase my art in the studio on Fresh Friday or whatever. And so yeah.
Now, is that held right there as you start up Main Street by right across from Marina Jack's?
Right, near Palm Avenue and
Yes.
that's where my studio is that I work at. Yeah, it's a Main and like Palm down in that area. So
Okay, we've seen that and we didn't know what we were seeing. Okay.
okay, great.
I love that. Well, please put in the chat for everyone how folks can connect with you if they want to get a copy of either of your 2 coloring books or more. I think you have more than 2. Or if they want to make, connect with you for your art.
Okay, so I just go in the chat here. Okay.
Yes, just in the chat, make sure you click to everyone. I don't know, do you have that option to go to everyone or does it just say panelist?
I need my glasses. I can't see. Okay, I will do that. Thank you. So just put, not sure what I put here.
Yep, in the chat where it says everyone.
Everyone.
There's a little down bar there.
What should I write in there? I need a link probably to Amazon. I'm not sure.
Or just how they can connect with you. Do you have a website at all?
Yeah.
No, not at this time. I don't.
Okay.
But just like a name and phone number or something.
Yep, well, or maybe the name of the coloring book, and that way they can find you on Amazon.
Oh, that sounds fine. Okay.
Yeah. That way they can find you on Amazon. Sandy, did you have any questions for Kelly?
If things were very linear, how long does it take you to start a coloring book from idea to publication?
I would say if you do it properly, 8 months.
8 months? Okay.
Well,
That's not
each
bad.
page takes 1 to 2 weeks.
Okay. Now, do you have set now artists that you now know that you probably will go back to? And
Possibly, but some specialize in cars and some specialize in childlike drawings, and some specialize in sophisticated drawings. So they're true artists. You'll go to one for something, but another for something else. So yeah, the work that I had done, it's what I would call sophisticated drawing. So there's not that many artists, and it was a little bit tricky to find the artists because the drawings are so good.
Yeah.
How many different artists did you use in this last coloring book?
I used at least 5, and I used a separate artist for the cover. The cover artist, I saw his artwork and I booked him, and I love the cover. But yeah, so about 5, at least 5 artists. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I volunteer at a thrift shop, and we had children's books come in. And do you remember, I think it's still out there, highlights, books, magazines for children. And this one was a collection for like find the puzzles, the pictures within the photo or that. And I brought it home because I thought, I'm going to give this to my niece. And it was sitting on the kitchen table, and I happened to have some colored pencils, and I started working in it. And I thought I was almost embarrassed. But I had never looked that closely at a coloring book page ever before until I was trying to find the carrot or try and find the hidden shoe or something. And the details that tell a story within, here's some children playing in a creek. It's like amazing. So it is amazing what you do and how you have to compose it and how that picture is going to be expressed and how long someone in the coloring will be dwelling on every angle and line and dot. It's just, I had a lot more respect when I got through a couple of those pages, and I did end up keeping the book, so I had to finish it. But it was just wonderful.
That's great. It's interesting to when you look at something,
Sure.
oh well, how well done it is or whatever. It's
Yeah.
interesting, or maybe not well done in some cases.
Sure. Well, the same with flowers. I'm sure now that you're doing flowers, there's you're narrowing it down, you're focusing, how stylized, how realistic, how artistic are you doing for each one?
Yeah, flowers are hard, but whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love it. I love everything about what you're doing, Kelly. I am so happy that I met you that day at the coffee shop. And thank you so much for being on with us this evening. I really appreciate your time. I appreciate you tapping in and telling us about your journey. And I love that overarching message of bringing families together. I love that. That hadn't even been on my mind, as to what your message might be. And so that really is an aha for me. So thank you so much for that. I appreciate you being on. We still have Mary in the audience. Mary, if you have any question or comments for Kelly, you're welcome to share that in the chat. And Kelly has put in the chat as well. It's Kelly Kearns on Amazon, and I went out to everyone. And then I'm just going to highlight, I'm going to copy and paste this one over to everyone. It came out just to the panelists. And so I will, there, it goes out to everyone. Sarasota, a coloring book for adults and children, included top 10 attractions in Sarasota. So get that for your coffee table. It is a quite nice book, and I think you're going to love it. So be sure and go to Amazon and order that.
Yeah.
So again, thank you so much for being on. And so with that, I am going to end the actual, bear with me here. I'm going to end the actual recording.